What's going on, everybody? We are on a quarantine date. That consists of us staying in the car, but we drove up to Malibu to try to go to like one of our favorite lookout points. Super like romantic little spot that Nicole and I go to.
He took me there like the day before he asked me to be his girlfriend, and it was like the first time we saw each other after 2 weeks of like just FaceTiming.
Yeah.
And so we just tried to go there and it was closed.
It's closed, but all good. Devil can't hold us back. So we're at a different like random little lookout point, but I'd say it's a vibe.
It's a vibe. I made him switch sides with me because this is my good side.
Both sides are good sides, so this is a ongoing conversation. Go ahead and leave your feedback in the comments to encourage her.
This is my good side.
Both sides.
All the ladies know what I'm talking about.
Both sides are good. We're gonna do a little Q&A.
I decided we could, do a Q&A, and then you guys left a ton of questions, and so we can't answer all of them, and a lot of them are like really like deep answers. We'll see.
We'll see. We'll try to keep it short and sweet.
First question, how long have you been together?
Am I answering the question or you?
I mean, we both know the answer.
Yeah. 7 months.
A little over
Just
7
a little
months.
over 7 months.
Are you both the same age?
You got this one.
I am 29. I'm going to be 30. It's not April yet. Next month. And he's 27. Which is interesting because I always said I would never date someone younger than me, just because I feel like men typically are not as mature, and I feel like I'm mature even for my age, and so I just never thought anyone younger than me could be more mature than me, but he actually is.
I don't know about more mature, but I'm just...
But he's very mature for his age.
Thank you. I'm just out here stoked. Yeah, I got a little cougar. I mean, honestly, I needed like... God knew what I needed, so we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, we're good. Is Nico a pastor? You both are such an inspiration. I look forward to seeing your posts. That's so sweet.
That is very nice. Who asked that question? Don't say.
It's actually, I told you about that lady that used to clean my cousin's house, who I loved. Yeah, she asked.
That's very sweet of her.
Yeah. So, are you a pastor, babe?
I think that question, I don't know, my job title, I'm not an ordained pastor. I guess it depends on who you ask. I would never just come out and call myself a pastor. I find that
but
interesting.
You will be an ordained pastor one day.
Amen, I receive it. But what I was going to say is I would never just come out and be like, oh, I'm a pastor. But I have had people introduce me as their pastor, and at first I thought I was like kind of taken aback by that until I asked my pastor. I was like, someone introduced me as their pastor the other day, and I didn't know how I felt about it, and he was just like, well, if they feel that you're their pastor, then you are their pastor. But no, the answer is by job title, I am not a pastor, but
he will be.
I receive that.
This question, I feel like could have its own like video topic, but waiting until marriage, question mark? Love you both so much.
Waiting until like for sex? Like,
I'm pretty sure it's a sex question.
Oh, okay. Yeah. For sure. Without question.
Yeah, I mean, this could like go very in depth, so I feel like we could do like a whole video on like purity, but the short answer is yes, we're waiting until marriage.
100%. But hopefully that wait's not too much longer. You feel me? Oh, yeah.
How did both of your seasons of singleness prepare you for each other? Well, I was single for like a really long time, like 4 years. And I think for me specifically, like I spent a lot of that time, like I went on dates here and there, but I was never in anything serious, like nothing longer than like a month. And then there was like a span kind of before we met where I felt like God really was doing some like inner work in me and really wanted me to like, maybe isolate is the wrong word, but like spend some serious time with just me and God. And then he really started to like pull like certain weeds out of my life before him and I met. And I think it was because he was preparing me. And so I do think it's super important to be obedient in a season of singleness and really like spend time with God, where he can work on you and your character, so you can be ready for the person that he's preparing for you. While he's preparing you, he's also preparing your future husband or future wife. For me, I know that I spent a lot of hours watching podcast or listening to podcasts, watching YouTube sermons, reading books on dating, which I'll link some of my favorite books. The Wait by Megan Good and Devon Franklin has like changed my life, and really just changed my view of dating, my view of myself, and like my view on sex and purity. And I just realized I was doing dating all wrong. And so I became obsessed with learning about dating and how to like steward your single season really well. And so yeah, I think for me, making sure I stewarded that season well really prepared me. Preach.
I mean, I don't really have too much to add to that, other than I think remaining obedient in whatever season you're in. You could be in a relationship right now, and maybe it's with you kind of have this inkling that they're not the one, but God's still working on you through that season. So I think you just soak up wherever you're at, whether you're single, whether you're in a relationship, whether you've never had a serious relationship, or just wherever season you're at in your own life. I think just kind of really soaking it in and being obedient to what God is telling you to do, and learning from everything. Just trying to learn from every relationship, whether it's what you want or what you don't want. You know what I mean? I think every relationship carries lessons that form you and prepare you for who God ultimately has in store for you, and has, so.
That's good. Yeah, and there's another question that kind of, I feel like we touched on, but how to practice patience in the waiting for the man Jesus has for you. And I feel like we kind of just answered that. Okay, I will say that during like your single season, I always say that had I not been stewarding it well, and had I not been working on me, I wouldn't have been ready for him. And also, like, if God presented you your husband tomorrow, like, would you be ready for it today? And so if the answer is no, that means like you still have like that time to really embrace being single, to work on yourself, so that if you met your future husband or future wife tomorrow, you would be ready.
How to practice patience in the waiting. You just have to move with intentionality in everything that you do.
Yeah.
So if you're dating someone just to date them, and you don't see it being the future, them being your future, you just got to cut it off. You know what I mean? And there's nothing wrong with this person, but just be very intentional in what you're doing. Don't just date just to date.
We've all been there.
Yeah, of course. But I'm saying, well, maybe not all of us, but we definitely have both been in that situation at different points in our journey, and that's why I feel like I can speak to it, with authority, and saying, it's not, it doesn't get you anywhere. So just be intentional with who you're dating, why you're dating them. If you don't see them as your future husband or wife, and they could be amazing people, it doesn't take away from the fact that they're good. Oftentimes you probably are going to let go of someone who's good. Otherwise you wouldn't have been dating them in the first place. I mean, we all make mistakes, but you know what I'm saying? So it's just kind of being very intentional about how you move. They could be good or they could be great, but they still may not be God's best for you. Come on. And so just because they're nice and they treat you nice, and your family loves them, your friends love them, but there's something like inside of you that's still wrestling with it, and I feel like that's when like they could be great, but deep down they're not God's best for you. It's never easy, but like it's always worth it. So 100%. Next question. Are you talking about getting engaged soon? We'll just leave it there. What boundaries do you suggest to maintain respect and purity while dating? Obviously I can only speak like to the guys in this scenario. Number one, don't hang out after 11 o'clock unless you're in a group, or even maybe 10. Nothing good happens after that time. You'll find yourself, you could find yourself getting into a place that you don't necessarily want to be when it comes to your purity. Just know like your triggers and your hot zones, I guess you could say. Like, keep your hands where you should keep them. I think the boundaries thing, I know, like we had like a curfew
I mean, we never even broke it until, I mean, unless it's in a group setting. But like you said, 11 o'clock, like we tried to stay within that. Like there were times where we'd be hanging out at one of our houses and like 10:59 would roll around and I look over and he's like putting his shoes on. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, I gotta go. It's curfew. It's really hard because, again, like I'm almost 30 years old. He's 27. We're adults. But like you kind of just like boundaries are so important to like get in the habit of them in the beginning. It just makes it a lot easier. Even though it sounds hard, it like really does make it easier.
Having your levels of accountability, like people that you're checking in with and people that are checking in on you. I've got several guys in my corner that check on me often, you know, asking about our purity, asking about our boundaries. And I think boundaries don't always have to be like directly tied to like purity. You know, there's a bunch of different boundaries that you can kind of put in place to keep your relationship very, very healthy. It's just like a constant pursuit. And I think even that's like almost a boundary, so to speak. Like you just not allowing yourself to become so comfortable that you're like, okay, cool, like I'm gonna just come over whenever I want, stay as long as I want, not really like have this, what she would say, like cute, like intentional dating. You know, making sure that you're consistently upholding those things is gonna help, and that has helped. You know, it's helped us a lot.
Have you guys ever had any doubt? When did you say I love you? Where did you meet? I will say that that's one of the many reasons how like I knew he was from God, because in any dating relationship I'd ever been in before, it was always like, oh, I like him, but like there's always been a but. And with him, over 7 months later, I've never once there's been no but to our relationship. Like no, like he's amazing, but I like him, but he does this, but like there's never been. It's I've just always have had so much peace. And I think when you have peace, like that's a good sign it's from God.
It's so funny because I've heard this saying so many times, like growing up, but like, oh, when you know, you know. And, you know, all these married people are like, yeah, I just knew. And, you know, when you know, you know. And I'm just like, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Well, you're like, you can't really know until it happens to you.
Yeah.
Until you experience it, you can't explain it.
Now I know exactly what every single one of those people meant when they said it. Because when I knew, I just knew. And Pastor Julia said it in like a talk that she was doing with Pastor Chad, and she was just like, you kind of just, when you know when you're knower. And I think that goes on both sides. Like, you know when you're knower that you shouldn't be dating this person, but you still are. And you kind of come up with all these justifications as to why. And we kind of touched on that earlier. But then also, like, I just knew, and I know in my knower that she's the one, and there's never been a question about that. And to just kind of like spoil I said I love you first, 100%. Every
part of your like characteristics and personality would lead to you saying that first.
I would have honestly been like a little disappointed in myself if she said it first. I would have been like, oh man.
He asked me to be his girlfriend August 16th, and then September 3rd is when he first said I love you.
Someone's gonna do the math and see how quick that was. We were on the beach, and I said I love you, and that's actually like, I mean, that was such a God thing, because that's how the whole song Trust What You Feel was born. So thank God for that.
Yeah. Okay, next question. Are you guys thinking about making a couple channel?
I mean, on the drive here, I declared her the manager of our social media.
He did. I was like, what are you talking
I was like, you're the manager of our social media. I'm game for whatever.
Says the person who runs a social media marketing agency.
I feel like it's what I do all day, every day.
I mean, we already have my channel, and if it like turned out that our content literally just goes off, then we can just turn it into Nicole and Nico.
I would say that it's up to y'all.
Yeah.
If you want it to be that, then let us know.
What is the most important thing in your relationship?
God.
Yeah.
100%. And I say that so quickly and so confidently because there is no other answer. God is at the center of everything we do, all of our conversations, the way that we pursue one another, the way that we protect one another, the way that we speak to one another. You know, everything is centered and rooted in that, and it'll always be that.
And I think that's how we're able to have such a healthy relationship, because if God isn't the center of it, then I feel like there's just chaos. And
well, then what is?
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And I mean, believer or non-believer, something that I would encourage anybody to think about is, what is your relationship rooted in?
Yeah.
You know?
That's good, babe. Are you a pastor? Any advantages of Nicole being a photographer? LOL.
I mean, I would say, yeah, like, we actually just recently started, like, shooting a little bit more, given, like, the quarantine and stuff.
Yeah, I'll go shoot him, and I'll be like, which one do you like? And anything I pick, basically.
Yeah, I mean, that's the number one advantage. She takes a handful of photos. I don't even want to look at them.
Whatever you like, babe.
Yeah, I'm like, whatever you like. I mean, you're the professional, so...
Dream client.
In the future, when we have, like, kids and stuff, then they'll definitely reap the benefits.
Yeah, 100%.
As
will you, because you won't have to pay for a photographer to take pictures of the children.
Facts. I mean, I would have probably been stubborn and been like, I got it.
Yeah.
You know? Or I know someone.
Yeah, exactly. Anna would like to know, when do we plan on getting married?
Anna, that's for me to know, and for all y'all, including you, to find out.
I appreciated that question, though. How do you know you found the one? Yeah, this pastor, I think he said, if you don't know, you know that you know.
Yeah, exactly. Because if it's like you're consistently, like, having to ask the question, like, is, you know, but, then it's probably a no. I mean, at least from my experience. And then also, when I say, like, that you were made, like, in heaven for me, I've, like, journaled about the woman that I asked God for, you know, and literally... And, you know, I think that you should get very specific with what you're looking for. And not just, like, in a relationship. I think that's, like, just across the board. Like, God is a very specific God and is looking to fulfill your life in every way. So why would it be any different with the person that he has for you to become one with? So for me, you know, I looked at that list, and every single thing was like... this, yep, this, yep, this, yep. And also, like, I just don't think you should have to try to shape shift or date anyone off of potential. Like, they are who they are, and if they fit, they fit, and if they don't, they don't, and that's okay.
Never date someone for their potential, because they may never reach it. And I've been in situations like that where it's like, oh, well, he's great, or he has so much potential, like, he'll get there, because you want to, like... You think if they get there, then they're like your dream person potentially, but they may never get there. And so if you're dating someone for potential, you may never get the person that you think that they could be. I wrote a non-negotiable list, like, probably a year and a half ago with my women's group, and there's probably 20 non-negotiables on the list. And not like, I mean, you could have, like, physical, like, appearance things, but they were all, like, more, you know, slow to anger, passionate, driven, emotionally stable, financially stable, like, all these things. And he literally checked off every single box and I even added stuff to it. And something as little as passionate in all that he does. Like, that was something so specific. And if you were to ask someone, like, something about him, they would say he's the most passionate person that they know. And just as an example of, like, God cares about the details. And so he will fulfill everything. So if you're dating someone and you're like, oh, well, they have everything except this, but this is such a huge thing, that's not your person. Because God will give you everything you want. What drew you to one another?
I'm ashamed to double tell the truth. I mean, the woman is gorgeous. Like, I know that sounds like, I don't know, like, let's just be let's just keep it real. Like,
I mean,
how
attraction,
else are you, like, drawn to someone? You're like, oh, their personality drew me to them. Like, how'd you even... You saw them before you got to know them, right? When I met her, then I straight up, like, instantly knew. And then I started asking people that I really, really trust in our church, and everybody just, like...
Was on board with me?
Yeah, they were like, yo, if you lock that in, homie, you're a legend. I was like, well, then call me a legend. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, like...
Tell him, babe.
he I mean, he approached me so, like, we talked about this in our how we met, but like really threw me off. And so because I just wasn't expecting to like bump into him and the chemistry that we had. So I would say the chemistry along with like my attraction to him and his like rough around the edges vibe, like man of God, but like also if I was in danger, he would protect me. And so I feel like that's like a safety thing for me, which I love. He's a strong man. Can't be dating no weak men out here.
Thanks, babe.
I got you. How do you always put God first in your relationship? Any advice? Last question, out with a bang. If God is the center of your relationship, it's easy to put him first. And like he said, like one of his prayers for us is always that we have like God thoughts first before anything else. And just being in prayer together and like on your own makes it really easy to put God first, because when you're constantly surrounded by God or with godly thoughts, then it's really easy to put God first because it's like the only option.
I mean, if God is first in your personal life, then of course God is going to come first in your relationship. So I don't even think that that's necessarily something that like you have to align around. It's like God's first in her life as Nicole, God's first in my life as Nico. So then when like I'm in my business, God's first. In my finances, God's first. Like, so in our relationship, God's first. And
it's hard. I feel like it would be harder to put God first if in your relationship if he's not first in your lives individually.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, no, if you guys have any more like video topics that you'd like to hear us talk on or anything just based on those answers that you want us to go further in depth with, we would love to do that. And thanks for watching.
Smash that subscribe button and follow me. Follow me below. There's gonna be a link down here. No, I'm just kidding. You can cut that out, Jasmine.
We're gonna leave that in. Okay, we crushed it.
You crushed it.
Bye.